Hey guys, this is our Myth and Monsters episode. It's the last day of the month, and it is episode 14 of Myth and Monsters. We've been doing this for over a year.
That's insane.
So I think it's your turn to go first if you want to go ahead and tell me what you got. I'm so excited.
Okie dokie. I decided to do ghouls today.
Ooh, I
Yeah.
like that.
Right? Because I mean, so my mental image of ghouls are like these like hunchbacked, like creepy things in a cemetery with like the drooling
Like
stuff and they attack people.
almost zombie-ish, except
Right.
for not.
But not. Yeah. So I decided to do those today. So ghouls. So these are demon-like beings or monstrous humanoids originating from pre-Islamic Arabian religion.
Really?
Yeah, which I didn't know that either.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. They're often associated with graveyards and consuming human flesh.
Zombies.
Right. So in modern fiction, the term has often been used for a certain kind of undead monster. So typically it's just like another undead monster, like a zombie or whatever. And the word ghoul is from an Arabic, oh my gosh, Arabic word
She
meaning,
just had her vaccine shot today, y'all. So
yeah, maybe it scrambled my brain a little. It didn't. Go get your vaccines.
yes, please be vaccinated.
um, but yes, I am tired today. Also, I think the pollen is getting to me. We live in Georgia and everything is yellow.
That's
So,
the Georgia snow is the
yeah, it's
that time
rough.
of year. Yep.
It's insane. So the word ghoul is from an Arabic word meaning to seize, which I thought was really interesting. I don't really see how that connects to what these beings are. So I
Me
thought it was
neither.
just
That's
interesting.
so interesting.
Yeah. In Arabic, the term is also sometimes used to describe a greedy or gluttonous individual, which again, I mean, kind of interesting. I guess like, you kind of hear about like, oh, you're such a ghoul or whatever. So
Yeah.
I could kind of see it like, I don't know.
Well, we may be biased because of the urban fantasy that we read that has ghouls depicted in a different way. That's very
Right.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, in Arabic folklore, the ghoul is said to dwell in cemeteries and other inhabited places. So they're kind of like loners. They don't really go around people, but they do often hang out around the dead and bodies. I didn't know that there was a distinction between male ghouls and female ghouls. I just assumed it was all ghouls.
Yeah, I've never
Um,
heard that.
yeah, so a male ghoul is referred to as a ghoul, while the female is called a ghula.
I was
So
going to
I
say a ghoulette.
right. Yeah, no, and it's spelled really interesting.
Ghoula.
So like I see ghoul as Ghoul,
Yes.
and the male ghoul is Ghul, so without the O, and then female is Ghulah.
Interesting. I have
Yeah.
never heard of that.
Yeah, really interesting. Something else I didn't know about ghouls. Some legends state that a ghoul is a desert dwelling, shape shifting demon that can assume the guise of an animal, especially a hyena.
I
I have
have never
never heard
heard of
that.
that.
Yeah, no, me neither. But there were so many sites as I was researching for this that said that these are shape shifting demons.
Huh.
And yeah, no, I had never heard of that. I think what you and I know is the European version of the legends.
Okay.
And that's more along the lines of the undead creature that you and I are more familiar with.
I'm
But this
trying
is
to think
more.
what books it was. Well, I don't, was it,
I know what it is, and I have it in my examples.
okay, you go, girl.
Okay, but yeah, so desert dwelling, I didn't know, and then shape shifting demon, which was really interesting.
Yeah, that's not at all what I've ever connotated with ghoul.
No, me neither.
Okay.
So it lures unwary people into the desert or abandoned places to slay and devour them. So still like eating people, like it's still like a cannibalistic thing.
Okay.
The creature also preys on young children, unfortunately, drinks blood, steals coins, and eats the dead. So not even just living people, but also dead bodies.
What if it stole that coin that was the devil? Remember that thing
Oh
that we talked
yeah,
about?
yes. What? Oh,
What
what
would
story
happen?
was that? That was the. Oh, I don't remember what
Was it
story
your
that was.
Halloween
Oh,
story?
it was. It was the
Yeah.
jack-o'-lantern
The
story.
jack-o'-lantern story. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you guys want to know what we're talking about and haven't listened to our other myths and legends, for the Halloween episode, we did the jack-o'-lanterns and Halloween myths, and I don't remember what you did.
I don't remember either,
Yeah,
but I just remember the coin and how cool would it be if it tied into ghouls somehow. That's kind of interesting.
that is really neat.
Hmm.
And then it takes the form of the person that it most recently eaten. So again, back to that shape-shifting idea. And
Ah,
how creepy would that be to use in an urban fantasy book?
I feel
Um,
like Supernatural did stuff with shapeshifters, taking on other people's, but I don't think it was ghouls.
No, those were like I don't remember what those were. I know what you're talking about, I think. But
Hmm.
like yeah, like shapeshifters. But yeah, no, so that was another thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, I learned a lot about ghouls today. This is like a very short one page of notes that I
I
have, and
I
all of it
thought
is
I
very new.
knew about ghouls.
I know.
I don't know any of the stuff you're telling me.
No, I didn't either. Um, so it was not until Antoine Galland translated 1001 Nights into French that the Western idea of the ghoul was introduced into European society. So Galland depicted the ghoul as a monstrous creature that dwelled in cemeteries feasting upon corpses. And that's the kind of ghoul that you and I know about
Yes. Okay.
and that we're most familiar with.
Yeah.
A ghoul is also a name for a female ghost. Just a fun fact to throw in there that I found. I didn't know that either. I don't understand.
I
I don't know.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Um, in ancient Arabic folklore, ghouls belong to a diabolic class of jinn or spirits and were said to be the offspring of Iblis, the prince of darkness in Islam, and they were capable of constantly changing form. So
I
again, the
think
whole shape-shifting idea.
one of our myths and monsters was about gins.
I believe it was. I don't remember if I did that one or if you
I,
did,
I don't remember either.
but I think you're right. I think we did cover those.
Yeah. So go check that one out too.
Yeah. Um, ghouls are said to be grave robbers living off the flesh of the dead. So, there's a back and forth on whether they lure living people and eat those or if they just eat corpses and like that kind of thing.
Maybe they're like spiders. Well, spiders, where they kill them and then put them away to eat them later.
Yeah, maybe.
Hmm.
Some legends, mostly European, say that they were once human, but they brought the curse on themselves by eating human flesh, dead or alive. So this is, again, both dead and living that they're eating. They feed on corpses or living flesh, often abducting young children or luring away unwary people into abandoned places, like I said
What's
earlier.
with the young children thing?
I don't know. Like maybe because they're easy prey. I don't know.
Or nice tender flesh?
Well, that's
I mean,
worse, but okay.
I'm old now and my flesh is not so juicy.
Wow.
Got a lot of fat, but not so juicy like the little tender fresh stuff.
Well, I also feel like children would be very easy to like lure away. Like children are very curious.
That's true.
Whereas I feel like adults are more wary kind of thing.
That's true.
Ghouls are disgustingly ugly and stink of death. They are immensely strong, but they're geniuses in a sarcastic way. And I don't quite know what this means. Oh, geniuses in a sarcastic way. I guess like this article was saying like they're not actually that smart. So like they're geniuses.
Okay. Okay.
So tricking them would be a better way to, lose them rather than fighting them.
Did you see that? Is there anything about them not being able to leave the graveyard, or they can leave the graveyard?
I didn't see that. I didn't see anything on that. Nothing that specified.
I read that
they were
somewhere.
tied.
I don't know if it
Oh.
was in a book or I don't know.
Maybe it was in a book. Yeah. According to tradition, European again, church bells scare away storms, the plague, demons, and ghouls. Other than like it scares away like bad things other than humans.
Wait, church bells are supposed to scare away storms?
Supposedly.
Okay.
Supposedly.
Okay.
But also ghouls, and this is the important part.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
And so that's all the actual like information that I found on ghouls. And then I have a few examples of ghouls that are in popular culture.
Okay.
So apparently they are in Harry Potter. I don't remember this. I haven't read them since, like
you were little. Yeah.
decades ago.
Yeah.
So But apparently they're harmless creatures in Harry Potter that live in the homes of wizards, and apparently the Weasleys had one in their attic
I
as
don't
like a
remember
pet.
that at all.
Yeah, I don't.
But like you, it's been a long time since I've read the books.
Been a very long time. Supposedly there were some in Supernatural season 4. Again, I don't remember that, but I'm not surprised.
I just watched Supernatural not too long ago. I am not surprised either, but
Yeah.
I don't remember what they portrayed ghouls to be.
Hmm. Um, Dungeons and Dragons also has ghouls in it, and those are just like your typical monsters that try to eat you.
Well, I think in Mansions, doesn't Mansions have ghouls?
I think it does actually. Yeah, Mansions of Madness.
Yeah, this is
Um,
a game that Taylor got for Christmas from her girlfriend's mother.
hmm.
And we had a great time playing it, and we've moved it on online to, so because we all live in different places and because of the pandemic, we actually now can play it on our computers that hook up to the TVs and whatnot. And
Yeah,
but I believe they had ghouls too.
I think you're right. I think there were ghouls.
Hmm.
Um, there's an anime series called Tokyo Ghoul, and it's about people who I believe become ghouls. I haven't watched it myself, but it is a big popular one. And then the series that you were trying to think of earlier, I believe, is the Cat and Bones series.
Okay, I think you're
There,
right.
yeah, because there are vampires in that series, and there are also ghouls, and the ghouls are, just undead like vampires, but they are their own person. They come back from the dead, uh, and I think they eat corpses from then on. So
Neat. I
yeah,
There's a lot that you can do in urban fantasy with that, or any fantasy with that, even regular fiction with that. Well, probably not regular fiction.
well,
Ghouls
not
might be a
probably
little bit
not.
outside the box for that,
Yeah, probably not regular fiction.
but supernatural fiction for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, so that's ghouls. I learned a lot that I didn't know.
I really thought I knew ghouls, and that
I
is none
yeah.
of that was what I thought.
No, I thought I did too, and I think it would be really interesting to do a story with ghouls where they take the form of the person that they most recently ate.
Are they sentient?
Uh, well, I mean, I guess it depends on how you look or how you would decide to write them, but based on what I found, it didn't say anything about their
We need to
sentience.
do an episode of our Myth and Monsters on zombies now, because I'd like to compare zombies to ghouls because they're not the same thing.
Right. Well, maybe I'll do that next time.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me. I would be interested in doing a story from a ghoul's point of view.
That would be really neat. Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine? Because what I have read about them is you can be scratched by one, just like zombies. You can be scratched or bitten, and you turn into a ghoul.
Right.
And it would be interesting to write from a ghoul's point of view. That would
Yeah,
be
it would be.
interesting. Well, my topic is actually not a myth.
Oh,
It's a real thing.
a real thing.
It
Okay.
is a real thing, but I think that it is very usable in urban fantasy and different supernatural type fiction.
Okay.
So it is about the disease called encephalitis lethargica,
Okay.
which is basically living statues. It creates living statues.
Oh, wow.
This disease attacks the brain, leaving some of the victims in a statue-like condition. Wow, I'm sorry, y'all. I've been drinking for a while. Um, Speechless and motionless. Between 1915 and actually into the 30s, 1930s, an epidemic of this encephalitis lethargica, spread around the world. Nearly 5 million people were affected. A
Holy
third
cow. How did I not like hear about
I
this?
know this was crazy. A third of whom died in the acute stages. So, I thought this was particularly relevant. We're here in COVID. We've got this pandemic going all around the world right now. This one went around the world at that time frame and affected so many people. Um, those that didn't die, some of them never returned to their pre existing aliveness.
Yeah.
It's a neurological syndrome. So it's brain damage that causes the victims to sleep for years or to hack away at their own bodies.
Oh, wow.
It was first described by a World War I pilot and noble. He was a noble at that time, Constantine van Economo.
Okay.
He had switched his career to medicine at the request of his parents after a family members died during the war. This is World War I.
Yeah.
And so they had lost members of the family. And he's like, okay, fine, I won't fight anymore. I'll become a doctor.
Okay.
So, as a physician, he served both civilians and the Central Powers, and his significance comes from being the first to describe this neurological disorder that popped up during that World War I. It reached epidemic status in Vienna in 1917.
So that means it was contagious. Yeah.
Yeah,
So was
right.
this like a bacteria or was it a prion disease? Do you
They
know?
think
Oh,
that it
okay.
was related to streptococcus.
Oh, okay.
Um, so in Vienna, it became epidemic in 1917, and then it went to France and England in 1918. And by 1919, it had overrun Europe, the United States, Canada, Central America, and India. Does that
Wow.
sound familiar?
Wow. Yeah.
Very scary. During this epidemic period, there were peaks that occurred in 1920 and 1924, which we've got peaks. We're right now going up
Yeah.
again with COVID, which is so
Super
strange
relevant.
because a bunch of us have been vaccinated. I've had one, you've had one. A lot of people have had at least their first vaccination, and
Yeah.
yet COVID is on the rise again. At any rate, acute cases subsequently to that became less common, although many patients suffered chronic neurological, I can't pronounce the word, that persisted long after the epidemic period. So they had continuing symptomatic issues.
Neurological what? I'm a neuroscientist, you know.
Neurological, Sequelae,
I don't know.
sequelae.
I have heard the word before, but I don't know how to actually say it.
And I don't know what it is. I mean, it's Latin, so sequelae should be the proper pronunciation from the Latin girl here.
Yeah.
Um, there has been no epidemic reoccurrence of EL since the early 20th century, but there are sporadic cases that continue to pop up even today.
Hate that.
I know, right? Patients typically experienced excessive sleepiness, disorders of ocular motility, fever, movement disorders, any neurological symptom could be exhibited during this thing from day to day, hour by hour. It shifted very quickly.
Yeah.
Acute EL often presented as a gradual onset of nondescript flu-like symptoms.
Oh, good.
So you had extreme tiredness, the low-grade fever, pharyngitis, shivering, headache, vertigo, and vomiting. Sounds like the flu.
Right.
Neurological symptoms followed and could present very quickly, as in the case of a girl who experienced sudden hemiplegia, which is paralysis on one side of your body.
Yeah.
She was on her way home. She was walking home from a concert, and one of her side, I don't know if it was the right side or left side, became paralyzed. And within a half an hour, she was asleep and she died 12 days later.
Wow.
The victims are very much alive and conscious, and they find themselves in this inexplicably frozen state. They're static bodies, prisons for their mind. I mean, can you imagine being
How do
frozen?
they, yeah, how do they
And
know that they're conscious?
I think they can respond to some degree. And I
Gotcha.
guess the ones that have been gotten through it say, I knew exactly what was going
Oh,
on.
fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Of the survivors, nearly half found themselves eventually unable to physically interact with the world around them,
Damn.
all the while fully aware of their surroundings. Though occasionally capable of limited speech, eye motion, and even laughter, They generally appeared as living statues, totally motionless for hours, days, weeks, or years.
That's crazy.
The cause is unknown, but one theory is brain inflammation triggered by a rare strain of Streptococcus, the
Gotcha.
bacteria that is responsible for a lot of sore throats every year.
Right.
Um, Science's best guess is that the bacteria mutated, somehow provoking an immune response system to attack the brain, which is what left the victims helpless.
Right.
Um, it still occasionally reappears. In the 1950s in Europe, it reappeared in China 10 years ago. It appeared in a 12-year-old girl, and she was hospitalized for 5 weeks with this disease.
Whew.
Um, it says that this may be it's not dormant, but it's out there. It is just out there.
Yeah.
In 2004, they did an analysis of 20 patients with those symptoms and concluded that whatever it is that ailed them is still, quote, prevalent.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's out there.
That's crazy.
And what caused it to become this pandemic? So, of course, I read this and I'm like, oh, gargoyles.
Gargoyle. Oh, because living statues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Medusas.
That is so interesting. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So think of using this in fantasy novels, like, say, an archaeologist accidentally stumbles upon a nest of Medusas and they escape. And as they disperse and flee, they're turning all these all these
People's.
people into living statues.
Yeah. That's, yeah.
Um, Maybe they did the living statue part on purpose. Maybe they, like spiders, they venomize and they wrap them and come back and feed on them later. Maybe
Right.
Medusas would do the same thing. Maybe that's how they replicate. Maybe
Replicate.
it's not a sexual replication. Maybe they do this freezing thing, this living statue thing, or the gargoyle idea. Maybe these people are turning into gargoyles. Maybe gargoyles, you always think of gargoyles as being protectors. They're
Yeah.
put on churches to
Mm-hmm.
protect the church, that kind of thing. So what if something is going on in the world that we need protectors? And
Yeah.
so all of these people all of a sudden are turning into gargoyles. Um, or what if it was the first attempt at germ warfare? This came about in World War One.
That's true. Yeah.
What if it was something that one of those countries was playing with to try to win the war, and it created this side effect?
Well, there are plenty of people who believe that COVID was created in a lab. So,
True. I mean, lots of fodder for stories
absolutely.
in that. Very, very interesting. I just can't imagine. It's so creepy. I can't imagine,
It sounds horrific.
being
Yeah.
frozen and you can move your eyes, but you
No, that
can't.
sounds horrible.
It's terrible, terrible.
Yeah, no, thank you. Could do
But
without
so
that.
it's true, but I thought that it was very interesting and something that could be used in urban fantasy or any kind of supernatural type story.
Yeah, definitely. That is super interesting. I'm surprised that I had never heard of it. Like that is just,
Me too. It was very interesting.
man, we had some
So,
good stories.
yeah. So this was a good episode. Thank you all for listening. We will see you for the next Myth and Monsters at the end of
Yes.
next month.
Yes, yes, yes.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thanks, guys.